Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and wow, what an awesome live stream we had last night. I hope to see more of you next Saturday, but that's not why we're here today. We are actually here for some terrifying encounters, which I have for you, but before that, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss any of the exciting and informative uploads I put out, click that bell icon. And finally, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And guys, they definitely matter. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? In today's upload, we are going to go to the Sunshine State. We're going to hit Florida and a couple of encounters out of Georgia as well. So, enough time has been taken. Let's do this. All right, guys, like I said in the intro, we are going to be going over some Florida Dogman encounters. And just like the newspaper, Florida man, well, today it's Florida Dogman. Today's first Florida Dogman subscriber encounter. Hey Jeff, I hope you are feeling well. I was living in Camden, Tennessee. I was hearing a lot of coyote around the house till one night I heard and saw something moving down the middle of the street. It sounded human howl and could have been. All I could say, it was walking on two legs. Then went 20 miles to a friend's house for Thanksgiving. And I have told you this, I found a few tracks in the hay, but I won't show on my phone. All I can say is, put down your arm where your elbow is was the ball mark, forearm on your hand, and if you curl your fingers were the toe marks. But the about 2 inches further was the claws, about 2 inches wide, 4 inches long. I figure it was sitting on its haunches than just pad marks walking away. So I moved to Florida and wound up homeless. I was staying in a bird sanctuary in Daytona, a few times headed back to my camp. At the same spot, something would track me. I never saw it, but it happened like 3 times. Okay, so my camp was a half a mile in. So this time it was 4 a.m. I headed out. Almost out of the woods, 300 yards left, I turned the corner and heard something. I was wearing a headlamp with a battery that was almost dead. I saw an eye looking at me. Not eyes, Jeff. An eye. A single eye. It was golden in color, to a green, depending on the angle you look at it. At first, I thought it was a possum climbing a tree, like you may. But at the base of the tree, I heard a shuffled step, or a repositioning of a feet. I'm 5'7". What in Florida can look me in the eye? When I say look me in the eye, I mean eye to eye. It was at least 5'8". I was only 4 feet from it. When I stepped to it, the eye disappeared. I got the dark impression of a round head. I'm thinking Bigfoot? Now, I've been listening to many how-to hunts and Dogman encounters. Then I saw a wolf's head at the same height as the eye, about 4 inches further to the right. Ever see Wile E. Coyote looking around the corner, but he's moving his body in the opposite direction? That's the impression I got at this point. I backed up, turned, kept heading out of the woods, walking, not running. I'm thinking, whatever it is, stay there. I'm not messing with you. Don't mess with me. I get about 40 yards up the trail, and about 20 feet behind me, I hear a crack of a good-sized branch. Coincidence? I don't know. Now I'm on edge. I heard another crack the same distance, on the side the eye was at. At this point, I turn around and say, I'm 51 years old, too old to run. If you're coming, let's do this. Nothing. Something has been running with the coyotes right in the middle of Daytona Tech. It's Port Orange, but no one knows where it's at. 4 a.m., I wasn't stopping to ask if I could take a pic. I went back to the same spot next morning. The tree was only a sapling, about an inch around, so I think that leaves out a small critter. Oh, the eye was the size of a medium chicken egg. This was around June 10th, 2020. So since I've left Florida and went to Nevada, I was in Beatty, Nevada, closing up my mother's apartment as she went into living someone, as she's not able to stay by herself from a brain tumor operation. So anyway, 3 nights in a row, I went out on a porch to get boxes. This was between 3 and 3:30. All 3 nights, Jeff, I saw a fairy. Now, I know that's crazy, right? But I can tell you, it's a slime green to blue color. If you go on Pinterest and look at Janet Habbard drawing, it looked like that, wing-wise, but the wings were bigger. Now when it hovered, I saw the arms, head, and legs, but when it flew away, it looked like a cucumber, but with wings. And the motion of the wings beat up and down, but it also rippled like waves. I worked in that town, and bats all around there are only a couple of 3 inches long. This fairy was about 8 to 10 inches in body size. That was around the 24th of June. What's next, Jeff? A unicorn? A giant? I don't know, man. Anyway, if you want more details or questions, you can give me a holler. Today's second subscriber encounter. This encounter took place in Florida, Palm Bay to be exact. We moved out there when I was 9 with my mom, my older brother 18, my sister 17, because our grandmother was sick and my mother wanted to be close to her. So we ended up moving right next door to her. My second oldest stayed with our father back in Massachusetts. The area in Florida where we lived was small, surrounded by a couple of other houses, and for some reason barely any light posts, so it was very dark at night. I remember neighbors would complain about things like their garbage is being spread around in loud bangs, but everyone usually chalked it up to being wild animals or kids messing around. It happened to us a few times as well, but no one could do anything about it, other than just get upset about it. So on this night, I will always remember this because it scared me so bad. There was a storm coming, so my mom chose to stay home, just so we would all stay together. It was getting late. We had just finished eating. She went to go check on my grandmother just to see if she was okay or if she needed anything. So we waited for my mom to get back because we wanted to watch a movie together before going to bed. My siblings and I were trying to figure out what we wanted to watch. All of a sudden the door swings open and she rushes in, shuts and locks the door. We all look at her, like wondering what happened, and she just tells us to be quiet and sit still. My brother gets up and asks what it was, and before she says anything, we all hear this dragging of nails on the side of our house and growling. My mom reaches out for me and my sister. We run towards her, scared. I shut my eyes and hold on to her, and she whispers to us, "It's okay, it's just an animal. It'll be gone soon, be quiet." My brother this whole time was standing there terrified, not knowing what to do. It dragged its nails a few times while growling, and all of a sudden it stops and we hear thumps on the top of the roof. And that's when I just let loose. I was crying. It was terrifying. Not only what I was listening to was scary, but knowing what it was that made it worse. Then my brother looked at us and saw pure terror. At that moment, he ran to the kitchen and got a knife and ran outside. He then came back inside a few seconds later and said it was gone. My brother and mother looked at each other but didn't say anything about it. My mom then said a little prayer and proceeded to put a movie to help me go to bed, but I couldn't the whole night. I was just hoping that the thing didn't come back. About a year ago, my brother and I were hanging out, just talking, and I brought up the time we saw the huge bear, and his face went pale, and he said to me, "That was no bear," and proceeded to tell me about the day and also the Florida incident. And then he says to me, "I was waiting for the day you'd ask about that." He didn't want to tell me till I got older. All those years he kept it to himself. Who knows what else he knows. Ever since then, I went down a rabbit hole of wanting to know more, and that's when I came across your channel. Since then, I've felt like this has been my life, and before that has been a lie. She has another incident that is not in Florida, I believe in Massachusetts, but this is a Florida upload, so I wanted to keep it separate. Her brother saw the Dogman both times. I hope she's listening to me talk right now, because I know she still listens to the channel. If you have gotten a chance to talk to your brother, please get him to come on and have him share with us the real deal of what happened. All right. Thank you for being a subscriber for so long, too. Today's third Florida subscriber encounter. First, you're welcome to share this encounter, but please do not use my name. First of all, a little background. I'm located midway down the west coast of Florida on the peninsula, Pinellas County, west of Tampa, north of Sarasota, south of Pasco County. Now, the only land access is from the north. To get here from Tampa requires a ride over the bridge, same as Sarasota. Now, Pinellas isn't rural largely. It's basically a suburb, or many suburbs. St. Petersburg is my town, but there are many towns in the county. We have Rays Baseball Club. If you follow baseball, you know what I'm talking about. We have a few county parks, but most part, we have totally developed a concrete jungle. Now on to my encounter. With the scamdemic in full swing late September, early October 2021, my wife and I had fallen on hard times. We were living in our SUV parked in the front yard of a friend. We were homeless. But it wasn't a big deal. We're minimalists anyway. Now, the person's home we were staying at had about 15 cats outside, which the lady would feed daily. Not to mention the 17 cats inside. Oh yeah, the neighborhood cat lady. Hence why we lived outside in the SUV. Now, there are possum and coons around, especially since she would leave dry cat food in bowls outside for the cats. So every evening, the coons and possums would help themselves to a free meal. Well, for about 2 weeks, we would hear the coons at night, 1:30 to 3, creating huge ruckus. It'd wake us up the first time I heard it. I knocked myself out jumping up out of sleep, hitting the roof of my truck. Now, it would go on for a few, then quiet down. This happened every night, and it got old quick. I went to Walmart and got a slingshot and some ammo, and when it would happen, I would step out of the truck and sling a few shots their way in the trees to scare them off. They'll go back to sleep. On and on it happened every night, at the same time. I would always use a headlamp and eye shine the coons and try to chase them off. Well, I had recently gotten a new cell phone, and it had a decent night vision camera built in. Here's where stuff went sideways for me. The usual racket commenced, so I got out with the phone, not slingshot, and started to scan the old oak tree out front where the raccoons resided. As I did, I was not prepared for what I saw. About 30 to 40 feet in the tree above the house on a main branch is a coon's nest. As I aimed my phone, I could see eye shine. Not unusual, but then I remembered no headlamp, just phone. These eyes were also an amber color, not greenish blue I would usually see. I snapped a couple of pics because everything went quiet, like they were expecting a lot of shots coming their way to shut them up. The amber eyes didn't seem right to me now. I'm 46 years old and grew up in your neck of the woods, Corning, Elmira, Horseheads, New York, upstate. So I've hunted and fished my entire life, seen lots of animals, yet these eyes just didn't sit right with me. So I zoomed in and snapped another couple pics. That's when it happened. Cold chills ran through me. Looking at me was a Dogman that basically looks like the close-up you use as a thumbnail a lot. Jet black, squatting in a tree, bent down, about to snatch a coon out of its nest. The look in the raccoon's eyes was that he was about to be on a milk carton. Now, as I'm looking at the picture, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm in this city. Never expected to see anything like this. Well, I was in disbelief, but I said, enjoy the noisy little. Have the good rest of your night. Got back in the SUV, grabbed my pistol, a Glock 20 SF Gen 3 10mm, 15 shot. I was not getting out of the truck, but it was not coming in. I racked around, and my wife asked, what's wrong with you? You can't shoot that cannon off in the middle of the night in the neighborhood. The cops will be here in seconds. I shakingly just handed her my phone with the picture. Her eyes got as big as golf balls and reached down and grabbed my Smith & Wesson MP40 shield. We sat there in utter silence. Jeff, I've always believed in cryptids, but never expected to see one in the suburbs of St. Petersburg, Florida. Now, it never showed any aggression toward me, nor did it bother our SUV, but I was ready. Now I can give you more details if you wish to contact me, but I wish to remain anonymous for the time being. Now, I've got this guy's phone number, and I forgot to contact him about sending me the pictures. I'd really like to see them, and hopefully, if I do get in contact with him, he will send the pics and agree to do an interview with those pics in the background. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Today's final Florida subscriber Dogman encounter. Hey Jeff, I enjoy your channel quite a bit. I live in Melbourne, Florida. Well, it's mostly town. There are a lot of wooded areas, and the St. Johns River is right there. I'll give you my 2 encounters. I used to be a heavy pot smoker, hence the request for anonymity. I just don't want or need anyone in my life knowing this. Anyway, my first encounter. When I was 17, maybe 18 years old, a friend and I drove out to a patch of woods with a small lake to smoke one. I had backed my pickup into a spot between some trees, just so I could pull straight out when we left. We're sitting in the truck, smoking one, listening to some music and stuff, when we heard what sounded like sticks and branches cracking and breaking, coming from in front of the truck. I turned my headlights on and illuminated this huge Dogman standing 20 feet in front of us. It was just standing there facing us head on. It had to be 7 to 8 feet tall, brown in color with yellowish amber colored eyes. Needless to say, I freaked out, started the truck, and peeled out of there as fast as I could, which just so happened to take us right past the Dogman. To its left. It didn't interfere with us leaving, and I did not stop or slow down for about 5 miles. That was back in 99 or 2000. I have spoken to the friend about it recently, and he remembers it the same as I do. My second encounter was 2003, maybe 2005. I was at my then girlfriend's house, now in-laws. They lived on the edge of town in Palm Bay, Florida. Theirs was the only house on the street, with the rest being wooded lots. I was standing out on the front porch, leaning back against the house, smoking a joint. I was facing right, with the road and driveway to my left and the porch light on my right, shining out into the yard on my left, standing there, smoking, when a Dogman comes out of nowhere from my left and walks right up to me. To be fair, it was 5 feet from me before I noticed it. I just stood there soiling my pants. This one was not bigger than the first one I saw, only about 6 to 7 feet, lighter in color. I don't remember the eye color. It held its hand out like it wanted some. Not knowing what to do, I handed it its joint. It took the joint and hit it, handed it back, and then kept walking the direction I was facing, exhaling as it walked. I immediately went inside and refused to go back outside until the next morning. Their house is only 3 miles from the first sighting as the crow flies. That's it, nothing harrowing or anything. And you can take that knowledge that yes, I was stoned, and dismiss me. But I know what I saw, and pot does not make you see stuff. Dull your senses, sure, but not hallucinate dogmen. You may do whatever you want with these encounters, if anything. Please keep my anonymity. Obviously, this is my actual email. Alright guys, don't know how to take that. I wasn't there, and a subscriber sent it to me. I'm sharing subscriber encounters. Like I said, I don't know how to take it. I've had my share time with the devil's lettuce, and I've never seen a dog man take a jibby from me. But who knows? Maybe they like the old THC. Anyway, moving on to Georgia subscribers. Hey Jeff, the incident I described happened in late summer of 2018. It was in the mountains of North Georgia. I'm a surveyor with 20 years experience in Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and North and South Carolina. So as you can imagine, I'm extremely comfortable in the woods as I spend so much time outdoors, most of the time being very far back in the woods. On the day it happened, I was surveying a piece of property around a small Corps of Engineers lake bordering a large tract of national forest land. I was operating a robotic survey total station transit, which means you do not need a partner to run a survey crew, and instead of having 2 or 3 people on a crew, you generally work alone. The property was fairly large, approximately 500 acres, made up of mostly steep mountains and howls covering the dense mountain laurel. I had just finished cutting the traverse along the property line, running to the top of the ridge roughly 350 to 400 feet away from my machete. Or with my machete, excuse me. Traverse lines are typically 5 feet wide and cut as close to the ground as possible to ensure a line of sight for an instrument. I had just walked back down the slope to get ready to traverse to the top of the ridge when I noticed someone or something hairy, wearing a hat, slowly walking across the opening that I had just made a few minutes earlier. At the time, I thought someone must be walking or hiking top of the ridge, as it's not uncommon to see people from time to time. But then I realized it was way too hot to be wearing a large shaggy brown jacket, as it was in the high 90s. At this point, I took out my headphones and started paying closer attention to the situation. I walked to the top of the ridge to see what was going on and noticed disturbed vegetation leading in the direction I saw it walk. Thinking harder about what had just happened, I realized that the lower limb on the tree I saw walking behind as it went out of sight was right at 6 feet tall, and what I originally thought to be a hat was most likely pointed ears. I could hear something moving in the distance coming from the area it walked to, so I decided to start making a 45-minute walk to the truck. I could hear movement on the ridge during my walk back, but I didn't think it was moving in reaction to me necessarily, although I wasn't willing to wait around and find out. I made it to the truck, and since then I've only told 2 people about my experience. That's pretty much as far as the encounter goes. I know it was not a bear, as it's been around them my whole life and seen them all the time. I've definitely been in deep woods, on several occasions experienced all sounds and sights of life just disappear at the drop of a hat. Thank you for letting me tell you about my experience, and I hope it helps someone else understand that they are not alone in theirs. Surveyor. Today's second Georgia Dogman encounter. Little about myself. I'm 51 years old and a U.S. Navy veteran of 10 years active, 3 years reserve, 2 years merchant marine for military Sea Lift Command. I grew up outside of Talking Rock, Georgia, on the family farm of 300 acres. 32 acres was farmland with a creek running through it, in the middle of it. We were surrounded by steep hills, ridges, and valleys. The house was about 10 yards off a dirt road that sat on a hill. This encounter happened in the late 70s. I was around 8 or 9 years old. It was late one night, and my bedroom window faced the front yard and dirt road. I was awakened in the middle of the night by a deep, guttural growl outside of my bedroom window. It scared me because it woke me up from a deep sleep, and I had never heard a deep growl that literally caused me to gasp for air. I turned on the light and ran to my mom and dad's room across the hall and told Dad something big was growling in the front yard next to my window. He said it was probably an old wild dog or something and go back to bed. I thought to myself, how could a sound like that come from a domestic type dog? It was too small to make a growl like that. But after the night, I never heard it again. I do recall many occasions of being in the woods around the house and felt like I was being watched. I never through the years put much thought into that night, just wrote it off as an old wild dog. Jeff, thank you for providing such a great platform for these encounters. Today's third Georgia Dogman subscriber encounter. Hey Jeff, my encounter happened around 3 or 4 years ago. At the time, I lived between Homerville and Cogdell, Georgia. My wife and I were on our way to Waycross to do some shopping. We would usually go there by way of Highway 122 as we did this time. This stretch of 122 is over 20 miles of pines everywhere you look. There are some bar pits, ponds along the way. Houses are few and far between. We started our little trip early, just after sunrise. As we were approaching a curve, I noticed skid marks from a diesel, semi, or large dump truck. They appeared to be fresh. Then I noticed debris, large and small pieces of this vehicle all over the road and on both sides of the road, including a badly mangled up bumper. The next thing that got my attention was a huge black mass lying in the ditch on the right side of the road. As I was taking all of this in, I slowed from 55 to 25. The closer I got to this black mass, the more detailed my observation of it. I got a much better look at it than I wish I had. It was a bit twisted. Its wolf-like head was faced up and slightly away from me, with its mouth opened and its chest towards me. Both its huge, bulky arms were bent at the elbow, with its hands slightly curled towards its chest. One of its legs was stretched out into the ditch, and its foot appeared to be digitigrated. I couldn't see the other leg. It was hairy all over. Its hair was longer around the neck and shoulders, and was much shorter on the chest and abdomen area. Its chest and abdomen area was much like a human bodybuilder. I didn't see any genitalia, but I'm pretty sure it was a male. I'm pretty sure it was dead. The instant I realized my eyes were not playing tricks on me, I floored the gas pedal. Neither my wife nor me spoke a word of it for 5 minutes. I broke the silence by asking my wife if she saw the thing in the ditch. She said, yeah. I asked her what she thought it was. She said, werewolf? I told her I think so too. At that time, neither of us had heard of a dogman. I found out about dogman when I started researching and trying to make sense of what I saw. That's my dogman experience. Not very exciting, but more horrifying enough to do a show on. Bet your butt it isn't, buddy. You know, I hear that all the time. My dogman encounter wasn't that great. Well, I said it and I'll say it again. You seen a dogman or you see a Bigfoot, regardless if it's not chasing you or doing something to you or doing this or doing that, you saw something that we are told doesn't exist. So any encounter is important because the simple fact that one other person saw it, two, no matter how small it may be, there may be a detail that we catch different from another one that may give us more information about these things. So any encounter is important. They all are. Today's fourth Georgian Dogman subscriber encounter. As an elementary school student in 1971, I saw The Legend of Boggy Creek, and it really hit home. I later read Peter Bryan's little paperback book, The North Georgia Mountains, especially the Appalachians, are rich with legends and strange stories of boogers. Parents and adults would say, "Don't be out at night. That's when the booger bears come out." Or, "Don't go there. The boogers will get you." Problem was, nobody would ever tell you what a booger was or how it looked, so we thought it was only a scary story. In the spring of '73, a game warden went missing overnight and was found on a rural road walking the next morning by a passing car. He was exhausted, confused, with his clothes torn, and couldn't remember what happened. It was later said that he claimed he had seen a tall, hairy creature with a big head and a face like a bull. This story was buzzing about for weeks, and suddenly all the talk went quiet. We think he either quit or the state relocated him. It was March of '74. I was 15. I didn't drink or smoke anything. I was a straight arrow football player and not the type to tell stories. It was 8:30 at night. I was riding in a car with 3 other guys, and the driver was about 2 years older than us. We were spotlighting deer, illegal, but not for a purpose of shooting one, just checking them out. We were going down a main road. It was barely paved and full of potholes. As we rolled along at about 15 miles an hour, we spotted a buck and 2 doe on a chest-high red clay bank with brush and overgrowth partially blocking our view. This was at a 4-way crossroads where the very narrow dirt gravel right-hand road led off into a completely deserted forest with no homes. On the left was another dirt road with an old church on the corner. Further down that road were a couple farms. A river runs down one side that is fed by the Amicalola Falls, which is located at the head of the Appalachian Trail. Ironically, there is an area of the river known as Devil's Elbow, where moonshiners, car thieves, pot growers, hunters were allegedly have gone missing. This is the same area where the game warden went missing. I was in the passenger rear seat and couldn't see the deer really well. We stopped and the guy in front of me got out with a spotlight, an old D-cell, and shined the deer. It was apparent that they had been running and were tired because they didn't haul ass when we lit them up. About 3 or 4 seconds after exiting the back seat, I heard a crack and pop 45 degrees to my right in the forest. My friend who was sitting next to me heard it and said, "Oh crap, it's a game warden." I said, "That's one noisy game warden." He then began urging the driver to get us out of there. About that time, some more noises, like something large moving through the woods. I instantly thought bear, because a 500-pounder was killed in our area, but bears are known to be very quiet when they walk. So I started saying, "Let's go," and the hair stood up on my arms and neck, and I began to feel sick with fear. About that time, approximately 75 or 80 feet to my right, at a 15 to 20 degree angle, I watched a large hulking figure cross the road from bank to bank in 3 forward-leaning steps while swinging its arms. From the sound it was making, it appeared to be approaching the deer, and at that moment, they bolted out of there. Now, let's pause for a minute. I was frozen with fear, and it seemed like time had slowed down. My friend to the left said, "What the heck is that?" And now we're both saying, "Let's go, let's get out of here." I got one foot in the car. Then I look up on the top of the embankment and see the outline of the figure move slowly and got behind a tree where its face and head were obscured. My friend with the spotlight starts slowly getting in the car while myself and the other dude dive in the back seat. At this time, my older, more stubborn friend pulls out a .22 caliber pistol and says, "Who are you? Talk to me or I'll shoot." Now we're all screaming, "Let's go." And he says again, "Tell me who you are or I'll shoot." I think my friend in the front of me still has the light pointed over at it. At that instant, we hear a big bang, bang, as the driver shoots up in the air. He immediately throws the pistol down and jumps in the car as we spin out of there sideways. Now I'm shaking all over so bad that my feet are actually tapping, and everybody but the driver is talking at once. I don't remember who first asked. I think the guy in front. They got a better look, but "Did you see that?" The driver was silent as we drove until we found a closed gas station to pull into. He got out and went to the drink machine and downed a Coca-Cola, still not talking. So my friend is driving us all home. It's about 10 p.m. and we're planning to go back the next day and look around during daytime. We also agree to only tell our families, minus the part about the gunfire, of course. After we drop off my friend in the back, we're heading to my house. My friend in front says to the driver, "Hey man, what did you see?" Nothing but silence until we got to my house, where my friend in front says, "You saw its face, didn't you?" He very quietly said, I sat there for a minute waiting for more, but it was obvious he wasn't talking, and it was getting late on a school night. I then had to get out and walk up the long path to the dark backside of my house, which sat at the foot of the mountain. When I got inside, my mom noticed that there was something wrong, and her first question was, "Has somebody been drinking?" Now, that was all I needed, so I finally managed to tell her the story. My mom replied, was probably the devil. But my dad, who grew up on a farm only a few miles from this incident, sat silent, looking at the TV. It was his older generation on both sides of the family who used the term booger. Growing up on the farm, he knew all too well about booger stories, and later said that he would hear strange screams and sounds coming from the woods. They always blamed it on panthers, but they were all hunted and killed by the early 1900s. The few other people I shared this story laughed and ridiculed me, so I shut my mouth until the 80s. So the following day we all head back, and our driver still doesn't want to talk. We get to the location and couldn't find any footprints, but we do find branches that are broken. Then we get to the tree where its face was hidden. Prominent crocked limb stuck out and bent upward. I could stand flat-footed and reach the limb with my arm almost extended. That put the creature at 7, 10, or possibly bigger. We went back 2 more times at night to look, stupid and heavily armed, but found nothing, thank the Lord. About 2 months later, I was in church and saw a girl that lived on the same road but closer to the main highway. Told her what happened, and a very serious expression took over her face. She informed me that it had run across the road in front of her one night while coming home from a football game. She also said that her uncle saw it coming out of his chicken house a year prior. I sat there silently thinking, oh God, why have you allowed such things to exist? In 1980, a new subdivision was being built near our encounter. A story circulated that the first resident of this subdivision came home one night to find his back door broken down and his kitchen ransacked. Nothing stolen, just destroyed kitchen. I don't know the man, but of all things, he was related to the friend who drove the night of the encounter. Before church one morning, I asked him, some 6 years later, if he had seen the face that night. He nodded yeah and looked away. My opinion is the sight of it really scrambled his eggs and didn't want to deal with it. As far as I know, nothing ever came of the vandalized home incident, as the story died quickly, just like the game warden story. For some reason, I told my dad a story. A very peculiar aunt told me at the age of 5 or 6. She and my uncle lived in a house at the top of a big hill at the foot of their mountain, about 7 miles from our incident. She claimed while rocking on the front porch one night, a very large, hairy man with a very ugly face came around the corner and stood motionless, looking at her 8 feet away. She said that she felt paralyzed with fear and could only cut her eyes to look at it. She was unable to call out to my uncle sitting in the living room behind her, only feet away. She claimed that she closed her eyes very tight and began praying to herself, and a few seconds opened her eyes and it was gone. I remember her saying the face looked like it got hit by a hammer. I asked my dad if she was crazy, to which he replied, "Folks thought so." Brother, if you're listening and you hear this, please email me because I lost your email. I want to talk to you. Thank you. Today's final, Georgia. subscriber encounter. Actually, today's final Florida and Georgia subscriber encounter, but this one is from Georgia, is now. Hey partner, I've been a fan since I found your channel. I really admire your work and grit. Before I was trying to tolerate the cat, I needed not mention whom I believe found passion in profiteering from people's real life and concern over helping them. That moonlight sonata of his smells of someone who spent too much time watching Michael Myers, I think. I'm not one to drag someone into uncomfortable conversation, but I think a man of your integrity understands. Anyway, that's my way of saying I am really thankful for someone with your heart. Now, if you will, sir, bear with me. I am not much of a writer, but I can assure you I've got quite the story. I'm just a simple 38-year-old man from Alberton, Georgia. My great-grandfather worked for a granite business, had erected the Georgia Guidestones, Alberton Granite and Finishing Company. His name was Charles Erskine Man, a journeyman sandblaster in the granite business. My mom argues that he did all the sandblasting work on the Guidestone monuments, but I know that to be untrue due to the documentation that a fella named Charlie Clamp, the work, and me personally. It satisfies me knowing that. My point is, Alberton County, Georgia is a place all of its own. I see UFOs on a nightly. I've even developed somewhat of a relationship with them. I know them and they know me to say the least. This all really kicked in overdrive early 2016. One morning, upon dawn, I heard unusual movement into the flank around my home, practically surrounded by woods, so I decided to throw a heavy stone in the area which I heard this. And no doubt I nailed something inhuman. Immediately, this thing starts barking at me. Funny thing is, it sounds like a small dog. Now mind you, I seen the height of which I threw the stone upon impact, which is minimal 8 feet from the ground. Immediately I felt intimidated and started hollering back at the throwing more stones. Suddenly this thing bolts to another location to bark at me, and there is no way possible a human or any animal anywhere on earth could move that fast through dense woods. No way. The span of a football field in 2 seconds is what this thing done. It never showed itself to me. This went on for a good 4 minutes until it stopped. The time being is, later that week, I was up late putting a water pump on my truck. It was cold and late. I'm tired from working all day. My dog of 15 years, Dat, was outside with me. Now, my truck is facing the same wooded area upon where I threw the stone. After an hour or so, I hear extended scream. It sounds like an amateur human mimicking a coyote's long yelp, but as it ends the yelp, it hoots like a barn owl. Now when I say it was loud, I mean it was loud, and I felt it in my very being that it was directed towards me. I was tired to fight back, and Dat had already went inside the house before me upon hearing this, and anxious as he is for adventure, that told me I shouldn't be so anxious either to mess with it. Time goes on, I hear things on my roof at night, growls, very strange cackling dog yelps, trees being thrown around like toys, the list goes on. I got a reason to think I'm actually being protected by a couple of Dogman as well, but that's another story. And I must add, in the past 2 years, my best friend, the dog Dat, was found ripped apart. He was a good old dog and didn't deserve that. I know what a coyote, bobcat, fox, and any other animal behave and sound like, Jeffrey. This is no ordinary occurrence. I'll write you again. This is that second email he sends me. I figured I'd send you the rest of my encounter. And the one reason why I feel as I am being protected by something, this happened a couple months ago. I was outside at night, and to my right, about 60 feet away, is the wood line. It's dark, so I can't see. Suddenly I hear something quite heavy running, coming to a stop, panting for breath. I compare it to a grizzly gasping for air. There are no grizzly here in Alberton, Georgia. But whatever this is was no man or common beast. of the fields. Immediately I remember my dog of 15 years and his unfair end he met being ripped to shreds. You ever see the Van Damme movie, Double Impact? Well, there's a part where Van Damme faces Bolo Yang in the factory type area where Bolo is tossing 55-gallon cans at Van Damme. At the start of the fight, he uses sign language to indicate you and I are going round to round till the death. Well, I did the same thing toward the noise I heard. Then I did a second gesture indicating you are going your way, I go mine. Of course, I know I've got no chance against these mysteries. But immediately after this gesture of peace, I heard them scurry away to the distance and stop. Two distinct, haunting, eerie yet howls rang out. I could distinguish one male, one female. I feel as though no one believes me sometime, and I even still find myself questioning my own sanity. But I'm no liar and I'm not crazy, I'm not hallucinating. This has truly happened. I felt sadness coming from these mournful howls I heard. I could speculate on the end to why, but I felt moreover as if they weren't in any way a threat. And they were not the same entity I've been harassed by for years now. I used to enjoy spending time in the flanks and woods, but I can't anymore. I immediately know when they're around, and they are never far. There was a time in this where I went on a couple of monster hunts with holy relics from Jerusalem I have from a pilgrimage my great-grandmother went on in January of '83. Being a metal worker, I even invented my own alloy chain whip with a cross welded to the tip, blessed in holy water. But I've lost these things since I've grown older and wiser to the strength of them. Jeffrey, you wouldn't believe this, but I've seen things going on at night in space I know is nefarious towards men. I've seen satanic rituals in broad daylight with the use of chemtrails. If you have a welding helmet, you can see much around the sun at certain times of the year. I've seen the all-seeing eye in its pyramid and much more. In my personal research, I've learned that stories are told and retold in the clouds. In the book of Enoch, it tells of a specific angel whom teaches a forbidden art of cloud reading. Anyway, that's a whole different concept from cryptids, but I can assure you it's relative. Well, anyway, I just figured I'd send you another message. God only knows what kind of BS liars and frauds you deal with in your work, but I can assure you I'm not one. I know the price of even the most simple lie told, and believe me, I've paid for my share of them. Anyway, take care and God bless. Brother, if you hear this, email me. I'm emailing you soon as well. I want to get you on the show. Wow, what an awesome upload. I really enjoyed sharing all those encounters with you. I hope you guys enjoyed them as well. Guys, thank you so much for supporting this channel. The growth is truly amazing. I couldn't be any more blessed than I am right now. So thank you. With that, please, everyone, stay happy, safe, and healthy. And God bless you all.